It's week 12 and we legit have the best waiver wire of the season. Like, honestly, half the waiver wires this year have just been absolute god awful. But this week, they're like 6 guys that very easily could be available in your league that you should pick up. First player is going to be Sean Tucker. Now, I've already had to go on the public apology tour apologizing for me saying on Sunday morning to bench Sean Tucker, because Rachaad White had played like 70% of the snaps in week 10, had no idea how you could project out Sean Tucker being the starting running back for the Bucs in week 11, but it happened. Sean Tucker, 19 carries, 2 targets, comes through with 34 total fantasy points. And while we do get positive news that Bucky Irving's going to be more involved at practice this week, it is by no means a guarantee that you're going to be getting Bucky Irving back with this team as early as week 12. Now, with that in mind, I do at least want to address the idea that if Bucky were to come back in week 12, Sean Tucker is not startable in fantasy. He'll probably just go into that Rachaad White role where he is the premium handcuff back all of a sudden to Bucky Irving. But if you look at Sean Tucker through his NFL career, he has been a very efficient running back. Like, you can go back to 2024 and off of only 50 carries, he did have over 300 rushing yards, averaging 6.2 yards per attempt. And that season, off of only 12 targets, he had 109 receiving yards as well. So we had the efficiency from Sean Tucker in 2024, followed up with a massive blow up in 2025, where obviously he's been very efficient this season as well. And yeah, this kind of ceiling with the running back in front of him, dealing with a multitude of injuries, means that Sean Tucker should realistically be rostered in every single format. Now, a couple of running backs that I have on my own team, Kenneth Gainwell, Emanuel Wilson are going to be very difficult evals right now. Let's start it off with Kenneth Gainwell. Now, the issue that we are going to have with Gainwell specifically is we don't know what to expect with the health of Jaylen Warren. Now, Jaylen Warren coming into this past week had actually been seeing consistently 15 to 20 opportunities pretty much every single week. Now, with that in mind, he did see the drop in week 10 to only 46% of the snaps, which was a low mark all the way down to week 1 this season. Then after this, Jaylen Warren gets banged up with the ankle injury where he was only able to play 28% of the snaps against the Cincinnati Bengals. He came through and he said he could have finished the game. He could have been A-okay, blah, blah, blah. Really, who knows how true that is? But my thing with Jaylen Warren is we have now seen Kenneth Gainwell, in my opinion, over a decent little sample, just look like the straight up better running back. We've seen 2 games in which Gainwell's been able to go out there and play the majority of snaps. And in those 2 games, he had 31 and 29.5 fantasy points. If you're looking at the underlying efficiency, he's sitting here averaging 4 yards per carry. I mean, he has had 4.2 targets per game, so drawing targets at a very high clip out of the backfield. And like I said, we've seen these 2 performances which are better than anything that we have ever had in comparison to Jaylen Warren. So I have Kenneth Gainwell on my own team. I'm dealing with the Jalen Waddle bye this week, so I may actually get stuck throwing Kenneth Gainwell in my second flex spot. I'll be very excited to have him there if Jaylen Warren were to miss. I'm going to rank Kenneth Gainwell as a must-start top 15 running back. If Jaylen Warren were to play, I do think that instead he is just flex consideration. Now, Emanuel Wilson will not be flex consideration unless Josh Jacobs does miss. Now, we had the report early on Monday saying that Josh Jacobs is not out for the season. Now, that is great news as somebody who has Josh Jacobs on his own fantasy team, but Josh Jacobs is probably going to be missing week 12. Now, obviously, we don't know what the exact timeline is going to be. I'm not going to just come out here and curse Josh Jacobs and say that all of a sudden this is a Bucky Irving type situation, right? But with Emanuel Wilson, you can see the snaps once Jacobs went down in this backfield. Wilson just took over as the guy, and we've seen this continued trend over the past few weeks where against the Pittsburgh Steelers back in week 8, Emanuel Wilson actually played 43% of the snaps here for the Green Bay Packers, and the Packers really don't look to get any other running back involved outside of Jacobs and Wilson. Now, of course, if Jacobs is out and that's going to be the game plan coming into the week, I would imagine imagine that Emanuel Wilson's not going to play 100% of the snaps. Instead, he'll probably be a lot closer to the Josh Jacobs role where he's seeing 70 to 75%. But Emanuel Wilson is a capable receiving back, which is 100% noteworthy. The matchups over the next few weeks aren't the best. You have to play against the Minnesota Vikings and the Detroit Lions over the next 2 weeks. And I realistically wouldn't expect Josh Jacobs to miss much more time than that. But just based on the idea that he's a receiving running back that's going to get guaranteed volume in a good offense, I would say Emanuel Wilson's going to be a must-start player if you were to have no Josh Jacobs. Now, obviously, there's a chance that all three of these players are already rostered in your league. They were all already rostered in my league going into Sunday. I had 2 of them. But if you wanted to get just customized actual waiver wire advice for your exact league, just link your league with flockfantasy.com on the My Teams page. It's literally completely free. I'll leave the link in the description. I'll leave the link in the comment section. If you play on Yahoo, ESPN, Sleeper, you can link super easily. And then when you're viewing your team in the far right column, if you click on the waiver wire options, it will circle through the positions so you can see the best waiver wire options by position according to your exact league. Now, moving over to our next running back, also rostered in my league, but not rostered in all of yours, we are going to have Tuten. Now, with Tuten, he actually had 6 of the first 9 carries for the Jacksonville Jaguars this past week. He actually looked really strong, and then obviously he gets banged up in the second half, and Travis Etienne does come through, and Travis Etienne finishes the game very easily. But this was my main concern that I had when I decided to trade away Travis Etienne earlier, I want to say 2 weeks ago, or maybe last week at this point. I don't know. I can't keep up with my trades. But I was concerned that the rookie running back coming out of the bye week with Tuten was going to expand his role. And he does see a career high 74 rushing yards, a career high 15 carries. Again, most of this came at the beginning of the game before he got injured. Now, would I view him as a running back that you're ever going to be able to start with a healthy Travis Etienne? Probably not. I think he's just going to be a thorn in the side of Etienne when Etienne's fully healthy, but he'll be that premium handcuff running back that if Etienne were to get injured, Tuten can turn into a league winner. Very similar to how we view Tyler Algier for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, moving over to Michael Wilson. It's difficult for me to sit here and tell you the exact timeline that we're going to have with Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm seeing Twitter doctors say, oh, Marv's going to be back this week. I said that on a YouTube video, and the comment section lost their mind thinking I said something that was preposterous. So maybe Marv does miss 1 more week here. And if Marv were to miss, Michael Wilson's going to be a borderline top 30 wide receiver in my rankings. Now, is he going to be the wide receiver 1 in week 12 the way that he was in week 11? Probably not. We have seen a very large career sample for Michael Wilson, and through his entire NFL career, he's averaging fewer than 1.5 yards per route run, which is absolutely god-awful. What it took for actually Michael Wilson to come through and put up a nuclear type performance was Jacoby Brissett to turn into vintage Blake Bortles, vintage Jameis Winston with garbage time and have 57 pass attempts. But we've seen this consistently with Arizona now that they have Brissett, where Brissett's had at least 2 passing touchdowns in every single game that he's played, and he's had at least 30 passing attempts in every game, and he's gone for over 40 passing attempts in 3 out of 5. So the passing volume's there. I'm never starting Michael Wilson with a healthy Marvin Harrison, but if Marv misses another week, then Michael Wilson could look to be a valid start, which is going to be valuable with so many teams on bye. Now, Devin Singletary will be our next name. With Singletary comes through and you get the multiple rushing touchdowns. He scores all the fantasy points for the Giants. Am I all of a sudden going to be ranking Devin Singletary ahead of Tyrone Tracy? No, I'm not going to do that. With Devin Singletary, I still view him as the 1B running back, but in reality, they are pretty much co-starters. Singletary had been playing 50% of the snaps here for this Giants offense coming into this week, but how I'm going to treat these running backs, such as Tyrone Tracy, as well as Devin Singletary, is slightly better than how we view the Tennessee players with Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, but slightly worse than how we view the Seattle Seahawks players with Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, where I'm never wanting to start either running back outside of if an injury were to occur to the other player in their backfield, then they could potentially turn into a must-start name. Now, obviously, there are scales based off the offenses that they're playing in and the talent of the running backs. I'd most prefer the Seattle running backs out of that group, but I do think Devin Singletary would turn into a must-start player if you were to get an injury to Tyrone Tracy. Now, Christian Watson is going to be somebody that I know everybody wants to go and pick up off waivers, but if we're going to be honest with each other, while he does come away with the 20 fantasy points, the multiple receiving touchdowns, at the end of the day with Christian Watson, this is a wide receiver that had a total of 5 targets. So it's extremely difficult for me to come through and say like, oh, okay, well, we know that you're going to be able to start him this next week. Well, Matthew Golden barely played at all. It was his first week back from injury. Every week that passes, we are going to see Matthew Golden get more and more involved. And you potentially have Jaden Reed in the long term. And at the same time, we know that this offense spreads the ball out so damn much that, I mean, Christian Watson's somebody you can look at in deep leagues, but I'm not super excited. Chris Rodriguez is somebody that you can look in for deep leagues, but I'm not super excited here either. If you're going to look at Rodriguez, he is the starting running back at this point for the Commanders. See, I believe he's a team captain. Ja'Cory Cross-Kamara is kind of an afterthought. But I would only look at Chris Rodriguez in the deepest of deep formats because 1, he's not a good running back. 2, he's not on a good team. And 3, he has had 1 target this season. He had a 1 target last year, and he had 2 targets his rookie season. So he is now in year 3 of his NFL career. He's played 32 games, and he's had a total of 4 targets. Now, our last player that I want to talk about before the defensive streamers will be A.J. Barner. This is a tight end that I have refused to rank for God knows what reason, but he's been very good. Like, if you're looking at the production early in the season, it was primarily fueled off of just receiving touchdowns. But this past week against the Los Angeles Rams, he actually had 11 targets, 10 receptions, and 70 receiving yards. I would definitely still prefer the tight ends like Dalton Schultz and Cade Otton over him. But in deeper formats, A.J. Barner is somebody that you can look at. Now, moving over to the top defenses on the week. The Seattle Seahawks going to be the best defense against Tennessee Titans. Baltimore Ravens get to play against the Jets. The Lions get to play against the Giants with possibly Jameis Winston. The New England Patriots get to play against the Cincinnati Bengals with no Jamar Chase. The Niners get to play against the Carolina Panthers where Bryce Young's coming off a massive performance. If I know anything about Bryce Young, he's probably going to fall back down to earth. The Green Bay Packers get to play against J.J. McCarthy. The Buffalo Bills get to play against Davis Mills. The Raiders get to play against the Cleveland Browns. And the Atlanta Falcons get to play against the New Orleans Saints. And the New Orleans Saints get to play against the Atlanta Falcons with Kirk Cousins and no Drake London. But I really appreciate y'all, and I really hope I was able to help you out in some way with this. Again, if you're in a shallower format, maybe there are players on your waiver wire that I wouldn't expect. If you're in a deeper league, maybe these names are already rostered. So just make sure you go ahead, link your league with flockfantasy.com. It's completely free. Do it on the My Teams page, the far right column. Just go through, hit the waiver wire name, and then it will cycle through the positions, and you can see the best positions available to your league. We link with Sleeper, ESPN, and Yahoo. But I really appreciate you. I hope I was able to help you out and hope I get to see you out with the live stream later tonight.